My name is Mary Beth Challoner. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Director of Athletics at the University of Toronto. On behalf of Professor Gretchen Kerr, Dean of the Faculty of Kinesiology and Physical Education, as well as Beth Ali, the Executive Director of Athletics and Physical Activity, it is truly my honor to welcome you to the Kimmel Family Fieldhouse at Goldring Center for High Performance Sport. And yes, you heard right, that is 3 women leading high performance sport and physical activity at U of T. Woo! Before we get started, I'd like us all to pause and reflect as we acknowledge this land in which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Miigwech. In speaking with the staff at She's4Sports leading up to tonight, I know that they are very excited, much like our staff was this season, to get back to in-person events and to get proximate with one another so we could get back to sharing ideas, sharing stories, and acknowledge the wonderful accomplishments of women in sport. Online technology is great and necessary, especially when we're in Spain, but there is nothing quite like the in-person experience. We are thrilled to provide you with this space to learn and grow with this amazing panel of tremendously accomplished and inspiring women in sport at all levels. To that, I'd like now to invite the woman behind the event and the face of She's4Sports, Anka Jess, who is the founder and CEO of this digital content and events company that amplifies the voices of women in sport and develops programming to raise the participation of girls in sport. An award-winning business leader, Anka is also passionate about empowering women and growing sport for diverse communities. The organization is Toronto's first digital content and events hub that amplifies the contributions of women, girls, and diverse people in sport. I give you Anka Jess.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Mary Beth. That one. And thank you all for joining us today. You know, it's a very exciting time. Women's sports is always exciting, but we are definitely seeing, that national and global momentum, whether it's with the WNBA, whether it's with sold out arenas in Europe to watch soccer. We definitely see quite a pace and momentum in women's sport. And we're gonna get into talking a little bit about that. But before we jump into the discussion, I'm going to show you guys a little short video so you can get a sense or a quick taste of what She's4Sports has been up to over the last 7 years to amplify the voices of women in sport. Okay, so now you got a little flavor of what She's4Sports events are like and the amazing women who've achieved so much in their career in sport and how we were able to tell their stories through events and digital content. So for growing the game, we're going to be talking to these wonderful leaders in basketball, and I'm going to get through their bios. They're well accomplished, and I might not be reading everything, but I do encourage you all to Google them so you can learn a little bit more about them. So Bridget Carleton to my right on our screen. Bridget Carleton has represented Canada since 2013, serving as captain of the U16 FIBA Americas team and joined the senior national team in 2016. Drafted 21st overall in the 2019 WNBA draft, by the Connecticut Suns, Carleton played a handful of games before ending up with the Minnesota Lynx. Upon earning a starting role in her second season with the Lynx, Bridget became just the third player in league history to score 25 or more points and have more than 5 rebounds in her first WNBA start. Bridget is currently only one of 4 Canadian women in the WNBA, and she's passionate about growing the game and being a positive role model for youth and young girls. Bridget, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Bridget's in Spain playing professional basketball, and it's, I think, a little after midnight there, so we're really happy that she was able to join us. To my right is Abbey Albino. Abbey Albino has led PR and marketing strategies for many sports and entertainment brands, including Nike, Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs, Foot Locker, and many more. Currently, she's the head of brand and business strategy at Canada Basketball. As a proud child of immigrant parents, Abbey also co-founded Rise Tribe, a nonprofit aimed to power the next generation of Filipinx Canadian leaders. Her love of streetwear and sneakers, culture, and building community led her to launch MakeWay, and she'll tell you a lot more about MakeWay as we get into the discussion, as a way to give women a much-needed space to feel celebrated and to cultivate a community that has been for so long underserved. Next is Keesa K. Keesa K, also known as Nakissa Koomalsingh, is the founder of HOOPQUEENS, Canada's first paid league for women's basketball. As a former varsity athlete, Keesa's exposure to inequity in women's sport fueled her passion for improving the reality of women athletes in Canada. She saw a growing need for safe spaces for women to train and compete at a high level during the off-season in 2021. Keesa started HOOPQUEENS to do just that. In addition to the impact on the court, HOOPQUEENS also focuses on off-court opportunities, providing tools, resources, and mentorship to help players at any point of their athletic journey. Keesa's on a mission to change the narrative of women in sport and inspire women everywhere to confidently create their own lane. Thanks for joining us, Keesa. Tamara Tatham is the University of Toronto Varsity Blues head women's basketball coach. In addition to her coaching accomplishments, she also made history in 2018-2019 by being the first Canadian woman to join the coaching staff of a professional men's team. Woohoo! As she has joined the Toronto Raptors G League affiliate team, Raptors 905, as a junior coach. The two-time Olympian played with the Canadian senior women's national basketball team from 2007 to 2016. Her national career encompasses 2 Olympic Games, attending both the 2012 London and 2016 Rio Olympics, 2 Pan American Games, 6 FIBA Americas Championships, and 2 FIBA World Championships. Her esteemed national team career is highlighted with a gold medal from the 2015 Toronto Pan Am Games, where Canada defeated the United States to claim the first ever Pan Am gold medal in basketball, men or women. Prior to her time with the senior women's national team, she played for University of Massachusetts and had many milestones on the court. She also traveled overseas and played with various international clubs. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, Tammy Sutton-Brown. Tammy Sutton-Brown is an Olympian and retired professional basketball player. She was the second ever Canadian to play in the WNBA when she was drafted in 2001. Tammy is also the first Canadian to play in a WNBA All-Star game. She spent 12 years playing in the WNBA and 11 years playing internationally in South Korea, Russia, and Turkey. She also spent 7 years with the Canadian national team and was a member of the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney. Today, Tammy is the Associate of Basketball Franchise Operations with Raptors 905, where she leads all community and corporate initiatives and acts as the Director of Off-Court Player Development. So this is our wonderful panel. So let's dive right into the discussion. Bridget, I'll start with you. From your perspective, what is the one key thing that should be done now to grow the game for girls and women?
Ooh, that's such a broad question that I think there's so many little things that so many individuals can do. And I think it looks different for everybody in terms of how they can be a part in helping grow the game. But at the end of the day, the biggest word that comes to mind is invest. And again, I think it looks different for everybody, whether it is buying a ticket to come watch our games, whether it's following on social media, whether it's putting actual money into franchises, money into, youth opportunities for girls and women in sport growing up. I think it looks different for anybody, but the overall investing in women's sports to get us to be shown in the same light as men's sports, I think is what we need to continue to do.
Thank you. Tamara, what's your thoughts on that?
The support is huge, right? And giving money and being able to raise and donate as much as we can. Bridget said it all. I mean, these are some of the things that are going to continue to help progress women in sport, but also bring a bigger opportunity for us in Toronto or just all WNBA players overall.
And Abbey, what are your thoughts on that from a brand side?
Yeah, I think investment is a really important piece of the puzzle. And investment can look like different things. It can be investment of time, investment of money, investment of, your personal resources or connections. I think the best part about being a woman in sport in this specific community, especially with these 4 women here, is we're always willing to give our time and connections to help that next generation. But yeah, ultimately what Bridget said is investment. So depending on what that looks like for you, I think investment's super important.
Keesa, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, like everyone said, definitely investment in time and energy and just giving back to the community. I feel like if you can't, let's say, buy a ticket or invest or sponsor, at least give your time and energy back to mentoring or coaching and accessibility to young girls, show up for the next generation. So.
And Tammy?
Well, I think everyone kind of said it all, but investment is the key word here. And then I think what Tamara said in terms of opportunity. I think when you invest in women's sports, you provide more or new opportunities for a number of people and hopefully a number more women, especially here in Canada. So that just kind of trickles down, and those opportunities to what has been said already now feeds into the next generation. It feeds into kids and inspiring the next generation at the end of the day. So investment definitely is the key.
Bridget, can you talk to us about the sacrifices athletes like yourself have to make to play overseas, and how valuable would it be for Canada to invest in a domestic paid league?
Yeah, that would be incredible. As amazing as it is to travel the world and get paid to play basketball, it's hard. It's hard being away from family. I was home on Christmas. Luckily, I got some time off at Christmas, but I haven't been home since, and that's not normal. People don't often get to go home for Christmas. So I'm gone all summer playing in the WNBA, and then immediately go overseas to play on a team currently in Spain right now. So it's hard spending so much time away from family and friends. It's hard on the body. It's hard mentally. So to be able to play in Canada would be amazing, and I hope that's something that could be a realistic thing for me before I retire. But yeah, it definitely is demanding, and it's something, obviously I love to do it, and I'm so thankful that it is my job, but it definitely takes a toll on us as athletes.
And Tammy, you're one of the first Canadian women to play in the WNBA. What stands out to you about how the league has grown, and where are the opportunities?
Wow, the league has definitely grown a lot. Well, first of all, can I add to what Bridget said? Because she nailed it. Being somebody who played 11 years overseas, it becomes part of your life where you miss birthdays and you miss anniversaries and you miss this and you miss that. So to have a pro league here would be so important, especially for Canadians to be able to practice and train and play and compete. And I think that would just help us being able to compete on the global stage if you have all of your players here in market playing or throughout Canada playing. And then one thing, I know I was on a panel on Monday, and one thing I touched on is one of the reasons why I stopped playing was because I was tired of going back overseas, going back and forth and missing all these different opportunities. And if there was a pro league here, I could have played another 2, 3, 4 years. So definitely, Bridget, I get it. Hang in there. I know you'll be home soon. Are you in the championship? You're right now in playoffs?
Semifinals, so a couple more weeks.
Finals? Even better. Even better. But yeah, sorry, can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
No worries at all. I love the support for Bridget as well. I was asking you that you were the first Canadian woman to play in the WNBA, so obviously you've been watching the journey. What stands out about how the league has grown, and where are the opportunities?
Right. The league, I think over the last few years, I think that there's definitely been a shift, and everyone's probably seen it. And you see it in the numbers, you see it in the fan base. I think that there's a lot more support. To Bridget's point earlier, there's been a few more investors who've come on board. And I've definitely seen the game grow, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time. I know from a player, I see now players making 2-3 times more money that I made when I was playing, which is great. I love it for them, and hopefully, it's something that we continue to push. and continue to propel, because at the end of the day, it's a great game. You know, it's a great game to watch. And I know all of us are aware of the game that's coming here May the 13th, and hopefully everyone will be here.
Yes.
Hopefully everyone will be there on May the 13th, the first ever game on Canadian soil. So it's an exciting time, and it's great to see the exposure. We definitely need more of it, but there's definitely more than when I was playing.
Tamara, how important is equity in the conversation of developing more opportunities for women to coach in Canada? And what unique value can women bring to leadership roles in sport?
Yeah, so having more women in coaching is probably one of the biggest things I think is important in not just youth sport, but overall, right? The value of having us coach in Canada, it's huge, right? I've played, again, I want to kind of ring in on what they talked about, because I played overseas as well. Being away for so long and then kind of coming back and trying to figure out what's next is hard. And staying within the game really gave me the sense of the value that I can bring anywhere I decide to go, right? And I chose coaching, right? So having me be here and having an amazing role model for my athletes or even young athletes coming up is huge. And I don't take it lightly, right? We're role models as basketball players, we're role models as front office industry leaders, we're role models as coaches. And I think that's the biggest value of having us be here and coaching in this sport.
Thank you. Keesa, what gaps did you see in the basketball ecosystem for women, and why did you launch Hoop Queens?
So many gaps. So I was an athlete myself growing up. I played the highest level was youth sport for me. Throughout my sport journey, I seen that, like, one, there was no female coaches. I actually want to tell a story because Tamara is actually the first person that I seen a Black woman. I don't know if you remember at Bill Crothers. It was like years ago. I don't know. You probably don't remember me, but we had like some type of like all-star. It was like an all-star event with like top kids or whatever. And Tamara was there, and I was like, whoa, this is the first Black woman I've ever seen. Like, they just asked me to volunteer, but I'm like, whoa, she's a coach, she's a trainer. Whoa, that's crazy. I've never seen this before, and I've been playing ball all my life. So that kind of gave me the, oh, okay, wow, there is a possibility for me to, you know, continue and not play pro, or I could maybe be a coach or whatever. So just wanted to tell that story. But yes, so there's so many gaps I seen when, you know, obviously when you play university, you come back and you train, you're broke, you don't have a job. So you're trying to choose between, you know, getting paid and training, right? So you don't have this facility, you don't have the dollars to up your game for the next season to be the best player. So I always kind of had that in the back of my mind growing up as a university athlete. And then when I graduated, I was like, okay, time to get this money. Basketball has been taking a lot of my time. I haven't been able to be with my family and stuff. So I tried to, when I created Hoop Queens, I was like, how do we create the sisterhood where we can have a support system for athletes to lean on, whether it's creating paid opportunities, being able to help them with jobs, being able to help them with scheduling, time management, that type of like ecosystem. So yeah, I'm just trying to, even with Hoop Queens, I'm just trying to like create all the gaps. I mean, trying to fill all the gaps that we have as athletes. So yeah, and yeah, I think that's.
No, I like that. I've seen Hoop Queens like all over my feeds, and I see the camps and the excitement. So congratulations on that. Bridget, I'll loop you back into this because I know that you do a lot with youth and young girls in terms of getting them into the game. So, you know, what are the next steps, or where do you see the next steps and opportunities for growing the game for girls who may not have a lot of access to basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, it's keeping the game fun, especially at a young age. I was really lucky. I grew up with two parents. My mom played basketball. My dad liked sports, but didn't know too much about basketball. But for me, they kept it so fun. My mom was my coach, and she still somehow made it fun for me. There wasn't any pressure. I wanted to be good because I wanted to be good. It wasn't because my parents wanted me to be this person. They just wanted me to try anything I wanted to try. And then I found the passion for it and the love for it. So I think that's first and foremost what's most important, especially in today's world with social media. People are falling out of love with the game very quickly because you see all these highlights of all these people and you kind of feel bad about yourself because you don't see, some of the lows that people experience. So I think that's first and foremost. And then just giving kids opportunities to play sports, especially, lower privileged households, giving, cities opportunities to get in the gym and just throw a basketball around, throw a volleyball around, throw a baseball around, whatever it is, to keep kids active first and foremost. And then, things develop naturally after that.
Thank you. Abbey, how critical are community programs in terms of growing the game? And talk a little bit about Canada basketball and sort of how they've been engaging with the community.
Yeah, so with Canada basketball, I mean, I feel like everybody here could probably speak about Canada basketball way better than I can because I just started a year ago. But I will say that, currently what we're looking at is some of the barriers to playing sport. And a lot of times people think barriers are like, oh, there's not enough gyms or they don't have enough money. What we found out, and actually MLSE Launchpad did a study, it was actually the biggest barrier to sport in general for both genders was actually just having someone to play with. Basketball is a team sport while you can play by yourself or just like shoot around with some friends, to actually play the sport of basketball, you need a team. So finding others to play with is a barrier. So creating community programs where you're actually bringing the community together to play together is super important. And I think another big thing that we don't really talk about is the infrastructure of allowing girls to play sport. So we talk about women coaches and we talk about girls wanting to stay in sport. I've been in rooms where young girls are like, I can't wear this uniform, it's white. And we all know once a month, girls feel really, not once a month, a week in the month, girls feel really apprehensive about wearing white. And that's something that only, for the most part, a female coach would understand. So this is why it's important to create these opportunities for women to become coaches so they understand what it feels like to be a young girl in sport. I could probably list a ton of other things, but I think those are two big ones, is having other girls to play with so they have that fun environment that Bridget's speaking on, but then also to the infrastructure to make sure that girls feel safe and feel supported in the sport that they're playing. I know Haney's here because I'm looking right at her. But Layup, which is an incredible community program that she no longer works at, but she did a lot of great work there. They actually started something called Sky High, which was a girls-only program that talked about a lot of the challenges of why girls don't want to stay in sport and started to alleviate some of those pain points by actually asking the girls, like, why do you want to stay in sport or why do you not? And then starting to build a program based on those answers. Oftentimes, just asking the young girl is the easiest solution because they'll tell you straight up. They'll be like, that boy hit me and I don't like him anymore. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So we'll remove that barrier. So I think community programming is important. Asking the young girls are important. I actually don't know if I answered that question correctly. Okay, great. That's it.
I was going to say.
Can I just add to Abbey? I know one of the things that I've tried to be very intentional with working with 905 is to do more girls programming. And I think, Abbey, you nailed it. I think at the end of the day, we've run a few successful girls-only clinics. And one thing that I've tried to do is have all our coaches be women, I should say, and all our staff be women who are there. And the feedback that I've received from the girls themselves and the parents have been incredible. So I think just having that space, Abbey nailed it when she said a safe space. Girls want to have fun and to be in a safe space. Not saying that they can't have males, come in and coach them, but I just think that at a certain age, they just feel more comfortable with women leading. And I think, to Tamara's point, we definitely need more women's coaches, right? And those more women coaches would provide more opportunities, and I think a lot more girls will stay in sports at that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add to that. So for Hoop Queens, we've actually run our junior Hoop Queens, so it's all girls programming for girls ages 4 to 13. And the first time it was cool, it was great. We only had about, I think, 15 girls. And we had a cost to it, which I was like, okay, cool. That's our first time running it. We had all female women coaches. It was great. And the second time when we got our Foot Locker grant, we actually eliminated the financial barrier cost of registration, and we got 50 girls. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is amazing. So that was one thing that I learned in terms of like just having access, giving girls access to basketball. And sometimes I literally just ask them after, like, oh, what did you like? And it's really more so about like creating that sisterhood, and like Bridget said, like making sure they have fun, because like it's not always about winning at that level. You're only like 6 years old. You don't need to win a championship right now. You need to love the game and love all aspects of the game, and really grow that. I feel like we all grew up playing basketball, and it was a sisterhood. Right now, the state of basketball right now, it's all about winning and getting scholarships. It's not about having fun. So that's.
Need to flip that around so that girls they can play recreationally, have fun.
Yeah, because that's how you keep girls in sport, having fun and not falling in love with the game, out of love with the game, like Bridget said.
If I could add to that, I think about some of the things that have happened in our city too, right? In 2015, our women's basketball team, our women's national team won the gold medal for women's basketball in Toronto, and it was the first time we won a gold medal in an international competition. And that sparked a huge rise in young girls wanting to play basketball in Canada. And it grew the game, right? It really grew the game. So seeing it also helps our young athletes want to stay in sport. Again, I keep talking about role models because we're all role models up here, and I think that's a big piece in keeping our young athletes in sport. Coaching is a big part of it, right? Keeping it fun, making sure everyone feels included, and making sure that the space you're in is safe. So the coaches we choose is also very, very important. Male, female, more female than men, I hope sometimes. We just need more opportunities at the end of the day. And they can look up to somebody that hopefully they can be like one day. So again, those other things that you see happening in and around the city really help spark that need and want to stay in the sport. And the culture of basketball is huge, right? Everybody wants to be a part of the culture. It's on social media. They love the sneakers, So, I mean, those things are really important as well when you think about staying in sports.
Yeah, thank you. Bridget, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of what Tamara was talking about with, if you could see it, you could be it. We need to see more role models on TV, on the broadcast, but also social media, and sort of like how critical is that engagement with fans, specifically girls?
Yeah, it's huge. I remember when I was growing up, I was lucky I had my mom who played at Division II in the States. So I knew that there could be a future for me in basketball and post-secondary education through basketball. But really, it was watching Tamara on the senior national team at the big tournaments. Kim Gaucher was my idol growing up. And that still was, and I was her teammate. But it was like people like them that I got to connect with through the national team, thankfully. But without that, like, I don't know what I would have dreamed for myself. I never thought I was going to be in the WNBA because I didn't see it. I didn't really know much about it at the time, especially growing up. I knew I could go to college. I knew I could play overseas, thanks to, again, meeting the senior national team athletes at the time. But that's kind of all I really saw for myself. So I think social media with the development of that has been huge. I mean, it's easy to follow your favorite player, to see what they're doing on a daily basis, which isn't great all the time, but there is advantages to that. But it's so important, and that's what I try to be for this next generation of girls and boys growing up, to see what female athletes can do through the game, and not only as athletes, but like you said, as coaches, as administrators, as female GMs. There's so many jobs and opportunities through women's sport that I think deserve to be shown.
Thank you. Abbey, let's talk about the brands again, and sort of, we've talked about different opportunities to grow the game, but how important are partnerships and kind of connecting with other companies and sort of some of the partnerships that Canada Basketball has been doing with some of their programming? Can you talk about how that also plays a part in growing the game?
So I think from a brand partnership standpoint, ultimately the investment and the dollars back into the program is super important. Canada Basketball is a nonprofit, so all of the investment that goes to Canada basketball goes into the programming. So it's not like we're making a profit. We're literally trying to invest in a competitive advantage. So that's really important for us as an NSO. As far as brand partnerships go, I think what's really important is finding partners that really align to your brand and make it and want to tell really great stories. And right now, almost every brand wants to tell a female story or a women specific story. And I laugh because it's like we've been shouting this for like as long as we've been doing this, and now thankfully they're starting to see the result, and they're starting to understand that a woman is a really influential person as a consumer. So, kind of leveraging each other to tell your own story. So for example, Flair Airlines is one we were just chatting about. And Flair Airlines, their whole, narrative is to connect the dots and to provide you with a really great experience. Canada Basketball wants to literally connect the dots of, do you want to play basketball? Do you want to, across the nation? So let's try to figure out how do we engage with people across the nation. And this is a very top level one-liner about it. So it goes deeper, I promise. But finding partners that not only want to invest in the program, but want to invest in winning and have the same passion for the thing that we have. And thankfully, all of our partners have that same passion for basketball. We have Toyota, we have Nike, Flair Airlines, Gatorade. So Sun Life Financial is another one too that has just come on the board and has said, yeah, we are super invested into basketball. They have a Raptors partnership, an ambassadorship with Nick Nurse. And so they have recently just come on board as a Canada Basketball Friend of Jersey sponsor, and that really helps us long term. Like those dollars really help us provide our athletes with a really, really good experience so that our athletes can just focus on winning and not have to worry about am I rooming with 3 other people and things like that. There are so many nuances when it comes to playing the sport. And we just want to make sure we're giving our athletes the best experience, and that best experience comes with dollars from brands.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that as well, because Hoop Queens, the summer league, is solely based on sponsorships and companies who want to put their money where their mouth is. We really try to challenge companies. If you really want to invest in women and you believe in the bottom line and all the other things that they're promoting in their commercials and their year-end reports, we challenge them to say, okay, how are you actually doing this, instead of just putting it on a report and saying that you're doing performative actions, So with Hoop Queens, we really try to challenge them and say, hey, where's the money at? Products don't pay bills, So
sometimes you have this real talks, right?
Yeah.
Tamara, where's the opportunity for academia to support equity in sport?
Definitely through our programming. Our schools are all, each program is through fundraise dollars, right? So everything we do, we have to try and fundraise. It's an opportunity for anyone to kind of get involved with our sport or our program or our whole varsity club as a whole. So there is a lot of room and there's a lot of opportunity to get involved. It's really just wanting to and going out and asking. If we don't ask for the things that we want, you never really know if you can get it, right? So that's a big thing, especially for women when they are going out and looking for things. You don't always have that in the back of your head, like, this is mine, because there's been so many times where men have dominated these spaces or jobs. Really going out and asking and really going out and saying what you need and want gives people the room to come in and give, be involved, and create opportunities for our athletes and our programs.
You have to be intentional, right, for what we want. I'm sure all of you, most of you watched the title NCAA game between LSU and Iowa, and we know it drew almost 10 million viewers. So we're also seeing, as I said earlier, sold-out stadiums globally for women's sporting events, fans wanting to buy jerseys, and sometimes the jerseys for their women athletes aren't available. But with all of this excitement and momentum taking place, how can we use this momentum to shift the culture around women's sport to get investors on board? Bridget, I'll start with you.
I think the examples, like everything you just mentioned, it's there. We've proven time and time again that people are interested, they're excited about women's basketball, women's sports, but we can talk specifically about basketball. The WNBA game in Toronto, for example, selling out in less than a day was incredible. I think all these investors, like Abbey had mentioned, people are, saying they want to tell women's stories. We don't want it to be just them checking a box and saying they're doing that. We want them to mean it. And by doing that, kind of putting, again, your money where your mouth is, and challenging them, like these ladies have talked about, to do that.
Thank you. Tammy?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think there's definitely been a shift and everyone's seen it. And I would ask, I did this on Monday too, how many in here actually watched the women's NCAA championship game? Right, so almost 10 million viewers, which was the most ever. And then on the flip side, you have the men's championship game, which was one of their lowest viewership. So the momentum is there for the women's sports. And I think the opportunity is there for those to invest early, to reach a young, diverse audience. Toronto and Canada is young and diverse. I know when, MLSC and the Raptors, they look at their fan base, that's their fan base. So investors, sponsors, brands, to be able to reach the young, diverse audience, I think, coming in early, I also think that for investors, they have an opportunity to help build what it looks like, because we don't have the infrastructure right now. We don't have a women's pro league team here in Canada. To start it off and to help build it, who are those people who are now gonna lead? Who's gonna be that core group? And so you have an opportunity to build it how you want, based on our fan base here, based on the women leaders, especially that we have on stage. I think we all have a voice and have opinions that we can share. So I think it's a great time. If anyone has money in this room, please feel free to not donate, because that's another thing. Can I just add to this? Women's sports, I think, have been looked upon as a charity for a long time, and it's not. You see the numbers. You see the numbers. You see the numbers. The growth that has taken place, the revenue that is now taking place, and you now see male athletes coming on board and actually being a part of professional women's teams. So the movement is there, and hopefully Canada figures it out sooner than later and jumps on board before it's too late.
Thank you. Tammy, this is a question for everybody to weigh in on. Did you want to weigh in on this one? No? Sorry, Tamara. Sorry, you guys are both sitting beside each other with the T's. Keesa?
What was the question?
The question is just sort of with all this momentum that we're seeing now around women's sport, how can we shift the culture around women's sport to get investors on board, especially right now where like our feet should be on the gas, like we should, as Tammy said, like this is the time to be investing.
Yes. Honestly, like I want to echo what Tammy said. Like it's our time now, and we just have to kind of do it with or without you guys, kind of thing. And if they feel like, hey, how can we invest? Okay, whether it's $5, it's like, okay, I don't know. For me, when I talk to companies, I'm just like, okay, I know you have way more money than this, but it's okay. We're gonna start here. And then just kind of challenging them to be like, okay, cool, if you wanna be more involved, this is the value. And they honestly don't say no. So just kind of keep challenging them.
Just kind of giving them value proposition.
Yeah.
Abbey, you and I talked about, what could brands and companies do now within their existing business models to move the dial on gender equity. And you had shared with me sort of what Canada Basketball's doing with the Global Jam tournament. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we sometimes hear from companies, they might say, as you said, Keesa, we don't have the budget, or it's not within our existing, strategy right now. And there's a lot of complaining and a lot of excuses, but there are some things that they can do within their existing models to grow the game.
Yeah, thank you for plugging Global Jam for me. And in case anybody's wondering, Global Jam is an under-23 international tournament that Canada Basketball hosts every, last year was the first year. This is our second. It is at Mattamy Athletic Center. And this year we have teams from USA, which actually are being represented by both Kentucky and Louisville. We have a team from the Africa continent, which we have not announced yet, but we will. And then we have Puerto Rico as well as Germany. So Global Jam is both a men's and women's tournament. And what we decided as an organization was to give the women's tournament the exact same experience and the exact same experience as a men's. And
Even better.
and one ticket actually, so instead of selling games, we sold sessions. So one session is actually both men's and women's. So if you're going to the men's, you're also going to the women's, because we know that we can't wait for fans to go to a women's game. We are telling them they're going to a women's game. Thanks guys. That wasn't my plan. That wasn't my idea. I wish it was. But our CEO, Michael Bartlett, is incredibly passionate about growing the game for women and is intentional. So in everything we do, we make sure that we look at the women's business and we say, okay, if the men's budget is X, the women's budget should be X. If the men are flying first class, the women should, so there is things that we are identifying as disparities between the two. And Global Jam is an opportunity for us to put both women and men on equal playing fields. It's also being broadcast, both men and women games are being broadcast by Sportsnet. So we're very thankful for that opportunity to just showcase the women's games. And in fact, last year, the women's game, Canada versus USA, did better than any game on broadcast, of course. And it actually did better than some MLS games, some MLB games, and some CFL games. So we know that the opportunity exists for investment, and we know that the interest is there for women's games. It's just a matter of making these decisions to put women's games at an equal playing field and level as men's.
Thank you. Tammy, you also had shared a couple of things that Raptors 905 was doing to engage girls and women. Do you want to touch a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I know you were there last year. Last year, we had our first International Women's Day, and it's something that they never did prior to me coming on board, but I feel very strongly about women and girls and giving women their flowers. I don't think that we honor or support or show love to our women as much as we can. So we had our first Internationals night, and then this year we did our second one, which I will say, based off of the first year, we had no sponsorships at all whatsoever. This year, Tangerine came on board and they pretty much sponsored the whole night, so which was really, really good. Hopefully next year, we'll get bigger and better. But on top of that, girls programming, that's another space that we never really touched on at 905 for a while, and I definitely see the importance of it. I hear parents talk about there's not enough programming for girls, whether it's clinics, whether it's camps, whether it's workshops. Girls definitely want, and especially at that, and Haney will attest to this, probably around the 13-year-old, just before high school, where you see that rate drop off. Girls want these opportunities, and what Tamara said earlier, it's a sisterhood, right? Men can kind of do their own thing sometimes. We like to be around other people. That sisterhood, that camaraderie, fun, safe, those are all words when it comes to women, and I think women playing longer into high school, even if they're not going to be a professional basketball player, guess what? The values that you learn through sport, honestly, I in the position that I'm in right now, I feel like I pull from all the values that I've learned through sport on a daily basis. Determination, hard work, communication, teamwork, all those things are incredibly valuable. And it's what I pull from right now in my current position.
Thank you.
Yeah, for Hoop Queens, I force everybody to have no excuse to show up. If you don't have $10, it's a $10 ticket. We can help you out. It's literally just having no barriers. People said that we had our first year was at Kerr Hall. It was downtown. The traffic or the parking, we moved it. We're now at Humber this year, so there's no excuse for traffic or parking. It's free parking. So there's just no excuse to not show up and support. So that's my way of forcing people to
Run a tight ship. I like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Tamara, I'm going to get all of you guys to answer this question. We see that the momentum is there and we're trying to move forward. Do you have any lasting words on the other side of people who think that basketball is still a male sport and that no one's watching, and we see these negative narratives that we're like, these are all false narratives. What do you say to that person that just, we're trying to show, as you said, all the proof is there, but there are still some naysayers that, women's sport won't sell, it's nothing to be investing in, but it is. How do we reach those people?
I mean, the WNBA game sold out, like in Toronto, in seconds. So the naysayers, no matter what anyone does, you are going to have naysayers. Bridget has naysayers, Abbey has naysayers, Keesa has naysayers, Tammy has naysayers, I have naysayers. Women's basketball, there's going to be naysayers. But it's on us to just continue to push it and make it and keep going forward and put one foot in front of the other and make sure that we are continuing to grow the game, right? On each of our platforms, however we can. Because basketball, the culture of basketball is continuing to grow. Like everything that the men are doing, the women can do as well, right? That you're seeing our young athletes out there dunking now, right? Yes. Dunking, right? So there's so many things that are so attractive in women's basketball that are bringing more people and bringing more viewers and bringing more support and bringing on people that want to partner with different organizations and with different people. I think those little things will continue to help grow the game. But again, it's on us to continue to push it forward and make sure that the culture on the women's side continues to stay strong.
I like that, sustainability. Bridget, do you have any lasting comments? I know you can't stay for the Q&A, so I'll give you the floor now.
Yeah, I can comment on that last question. I think, what I like to tell people is come to a game. If you don't believe us, just come to one game. Just give us one chance. Let us show you what our product is. And if you don't enjoy it, that's fine. We can leave you behind, that's fine. Majority of people will actually appreciate, the product that is on the floor, the people you get to meet, the culture around the game, the environment, how fun it is. A lot of the naysayers, a lot of the people that, hate on women's sports in general, just that's who they are, that's who they're always gonna be, and we don't need them. That's kind of my mindset about that. And we'll just focus on the people, the majority of people that do believe in us and love our product. And because it's basketball at the end of the day. No, it's not. Yes, there are people dunking. I am not, but it is basketball at the end of the day. It's X's and O's. It's great players, great teammates, great coaches, just trying to, put the ball in the basket. And it's fun to watch. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. And I will let you go because I know that it's probably closer to 1 a.m. in Spain. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and your voice on growing the game, and good luck in at your
Can
next
I say something
match.
before Bridget leaves?
Yes, you can.
I just want to say that Bridget will be playing here. You will be back in town, right?
Yes.
May the 13th. So everyone needs to go to the game who doesn't already have their tickets so they can go watch Bridget. And then good luck in the finals and travel back safely.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, Bridget. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I actually have one thing just to add to that last question.
Recording stop.
Go ahead.
About what do you do to the naysayers? I think there's nothing more fun than telling a man he can't do something, and there's nothing more fun than women taking the shine from a man, and that is what's happening. To be quite frank, the louder their hate and naysayer gets, it's because we're actually doing something. So that's why people are like, oh my God, there's more. The fact that meme went around about the stat about the NCAA championship having so many more viewers, that was not a surprise to me. The fact that it was a surprise to so many people means that they just weren't paying attention. They were sleeping on it. So now they're like, oh, it's not, but it was this, or but it was that. It's no, it was legitimately great basketball. Hands down. That's why people are watching. And also, the players in the game are fun to watch. So I think it's just the louder the hate gets, the more, and I'm sure we've all dealt with this in our own capacity, the more my head just goes down and keeps working and keeps pushing because we're going to become the best. That is it. And I think that's really important to think about as you are all kind of getting into your careers. I feel like this is probably an audience of women who want to work in sport or currently work in sport. There is going to be a man that's going to tell you no. Don't listen to them. It is not their place to tell you no, because you are there for a very good reason, and your experience gives them, gives whatever job you're doing or whatever brand you're working on a leg up, because your experience is nothing that a man can provide. So just remember that.
It was like mic drop. Go ahead, Keesa.
So what I tell the naysayers is I give them a death stare, like, what's up? Actually, so when I started Hoop Queens, a man told me, stay in your lane. Hoop Queens originally started as a run, so we just got some girls together from each generation, so high school girls, university girls, and girls who were home for overseas, from their overseas season. And you know, it was just a fun run, and I branded it, and I was like, okay, cool. This is like, I'm not going to waste my business degree, so let's just make a company. And the guy said to me, you know, stay in your lane and don't step on anybody's toes. I said, oh, okay. That gave me more motivation to like, okay, I'm going to get this thing done, and I'm not going to stay in anyone's lane, but I'm going to create my own lane. So it gave me motivation to just, you know, just head down and keep working. Like Abbey said, like, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always, if you're not doing something right, like, you know, there's always going to be haters talking about, you know, what you're doing. So it just gave me more motivation to just keep working and keep making it bigger and bigger. Like every year I was like, okay, how can I challenge myself to do better than what I did last year? So first year of Hoop Queens Summer League was last year. This year I'm like, okay, how can I make it better, bigger, give the girls more experience? So I honestly take whatever hate that I see or hear, and I put that into my work, and I just make it bigger.
Tamara, what does the future of women and girls basketball look like to you? The future of it, of the game for women and girls.
Future's great, I think. It's how much you put into the game.
Or what
right?
would you like to see it look like?
I would like to see it look like championships, you know? That's what everybody goes into playing sport, right? They want to win. You want the glory in the end. But at the end of the day, you win and you lose some, right? And at the end of the day, you'll always learn from whatever happens. But at the end, we want to win. We're competitive by nature. Everyone is competitive in some form, whether it's in sport, in the classroom, at the workplace, you are competitive. And finding that inner competitive thing that you have inside of you will always push forward. And for me as a coach, I'm finding it, and I'm also reliving it in a way through being an athlete, right? So in teaching my athletes to be the same way, it's very rewarding.
Tammy?
What was the question again? Sorry. What do I want to see? The future?
Yeah, like what does the future of the game for girls and women look like? And you know,
The
how
future.
do we? I know we talked about how we could get there, but
Right.
what would it look like in your eyes?
What would it look like? Especially here in Canada, the future, in my eyes, what I'd love to see. I would love to see a professional women's basketball league here in Canada. I think it would provide opportunity for young boys and girls to see role models in market and go to a game, right? At the end of the day, the little boy actually might like the women's game better because of the fan experience or the in-game experience. I think it would provide opportunity for more coaches, and especially women especially for women coaching these teams. And not just a head coaching position. If you think about the coaches' positions, you probably have 5-6 coaches on a roster. So now you're looking at 30, 40 additional positions across Canada for women to be coaching. I think of front office. I think of, officials. I think that there's so many spaces that we could provide new opportunities for women in sport here in Canada if we were to have a pro league here. And I definitely think it would be supported. To go back to the last question, I think women's basketball, since we're all basketball up here, have some of the best fans. They're passionate. They want more. They're online now, and so I know, there's been a shift with TV, and I think that's another space too we didn't even tap on, media, and more storytelling when it comes to the space of media. So that's kind of what I would love to see. I would love to see a pro league here in Canada.
And based on what everybody said here, the future does look bright. I thank all of you for your perspectives and your thoughts on how we can grow the game. I think, definitely we're on our way, but again, we all see some of the gaps. And we're hoping that we'll be able to fill all those gaps and that basketball and sport will be a place for all girls and all women. So the part of me asking them questions is complete. We want to get you all engaged. Does anyone have a question that they want to ask any of the panelists? Don't be shy. We don't bite. I think we all had some snacks over there, so we're okay. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I always like to ask the question, what would you tell your 10-year-old self? If you could go back in time, what would that be? In terms of sport.
In terms of sport, it's okay to make mistakes. They won't kill you. They're probably the best lessons and experiences now that I look back at it. So don't be afraid of making mistakes is probably one of the biggest things. Because I think when we're in it, we're like, oh my gosh, my life's over. No, it's not. As long as you learn from it and grow from it, I think that's probably one of the best things.
Who wants to answer that next? Go ahead.
What I would tell my 10-year-old self, I don't remember my 10-year-old self, but I know that I was head down trying to be the best basketball player in the world. So what I would tell her is, you know, believe in yourself, have confidence, and trust the journey. You know, there was always that anxious feeling of what's next, what's gonna happen. And my journey is a very, very long journey. It wasn't a straight path to Hoop Queens. I went to 3 universities, transferred a whole bunch of times, got injured. So yeah, just trusting in the journey and having confidence in, you know, your abilities. So, yeah.
I'll kind of piggyback off of what she said. Everyone's journey is different. And your road is not going to be straight. It's going to be very windy. You're going to fall a little bit, but you're going to get back up. Believe in you. At the end of the day, you're the one that's going to pick yourself back up. You're the one that's going to put one foot in front of the other and know that no one's journey is the same. We're both Olympians, but our path was not the same. Right? So really believe in what your path is and go forward with that and believe in yourself.
All of that is great and exactly what I would have said. So I'm just gonna say one more thing is I wish I could have told my 10-year-old self to pay attention to my physio person because my knees are not great, and that's because I didn't do the stretches and exercises that I was supposed to do.
You're getting a lot of cosigns from the audience. They're like, yeah, that's a good one. Is there another question?
Yes. So I'm Kyra. Awesome panel. Thank you guys for hosting this space. I have kind of a tangential question. So like women in society are very harshly based on how we look, especially on how we look even when we're playing sports. And I was just wondering, like, how do you navigate that space, especially when you grow into kind of more of a public persona? And in what ways can we make like women's sports more comfortable, as you were talking about earlier?
That's a really good question. Who wants to take that one?
For me, so I'm 27. A lot of people look at me and think, when I walk into rooms, they're like, who is this 18-year-old girl talking about she started Canada's first paid women's basketball league, you know? So for me, it's just all about being confident in yourself and being confident and also just being assertive in what you want. Having boundaries is a big thing. And also like, you look how you look. You're beautiful, you know, always don't ever shy away from, oh, is this too tight or is my hair too crazy? Like, just believe in yourself and what you look like and don't feel like you have to look or talk a certain way to be valued in a room.
I think confidence is the biggest thing. I'm not gonna say my age. You started that, I'm like, I'm not going there. If I was drafted in 2001, I'm not gonna say my age.
I was born in 95. I was like,
you said you were born in 95? Oh gosh, still in high school.
Love you, auntie.
But what I would say is when I played, for myself, I had 2 kind of personalities, on the court and then off the court. And so on the court, I was a basketball player. Like no men basketball, no women basketball, I was just a basketball player. So it was go hard, it was do what you need to do. And then off the court, that's when I was, you know, you can kind of do your own thing. It's like Tammy. But So for me, they didn't really blur but I will say is I did play at a time before Twitter. Like I said, I'm not gonna say my age, before Instagram. And so I think it's a lot different right now for girls growing up and women playing sports. But I think confidence is the biggest thing. You know, at the end of the day, confidence in yourself, self-confidence goes a long way. And it doesn't matter, you know, if your hair is all over the place. If you got that rebound, that's what matters.
I like that. Is there another question, or did you want to answer that?
Sorry,
one?
I just have like a quick ad, and I think what's important is that like we're recognizing that women can look very different. There's different body types, different hair types. People wear makeup, people don't. And I think we're starting to see, especially when I was watching the NCAA this year, I love the girls with the lashes. I also love the girls without the lashes. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I love it, everything. So I think it's just like, you are who you are and celebrate that. And it is obviously a confidence building, that's something you have to work on. But I think at the end of the day, if you're getting those rebounds and you're making those scores, it is what it is. Like, it doesn't matter how you look, you're playing basketball, right? So I just wanted to shout that out because I don't think there's one way for a woman to look, and it's up to us to celebrate those women, and it's up to those women to be who they are.
Growing up, I was taller than everyone. I was super muscular, and I hated my body, right? But playing basketball and being on the court, I was a different person. Like, I felt like I was in a different world. I could be who I wanted to be, and I was confident in being that person on the court. And that brought me confidence off the court. So the more you can be intentional about being confident in who you are as a basketball player or as a person or whatever space you're in, being confident in that person, that confidence will bring you to different areas of your life, and it'll exude and it'll take off, right? So continue to like grow and be comfortable in that space of who you are. And that's gonna help you get to the place that you wanna be on and off the court, or in the classroom and off the classroom, wherever, you know?
Thanks.
I wanted to add, we didn't really talk about MakeWay a lot, but listen, she owns MakeWay, co-owner. And MakeWay, honestly, like, I love that you guys push that you don't have to be you don't have to be in heels to be a businesswoman. So pushing the narrative of when you go into places, it's like, I'm still looking sexy, but I'm professional and I'm comfortable. So just want to say that.
I was going to say, if you notice, none of us are wearing heels up
MakeWay,
here.
shout out MakeWay.
And Abby, do you want to talk a little bit about MakeWay? I know we said that we were going to talk about it, and then we kind of ran out of time.
No, thank you. Thank you again for plugging another thing I'm working on. MakeWay is North America's first sneaker boutique for women and completely run and funded by women. It is front in Bathurst. That's currently in a stacked market. And we are the first Canadian sneaker boutique that really gets a lot of love from global and North America, like head offices. So we've been in a few we've been able to work with Jordan to do a bunch of different campaigns, Nike as well. But really similar to how Keesa created Hoop Queens, we identified that there was a gap in the sneaker industry. And as women who love sneakers, trying to buy any pair of sneakers was so difficult because you were like going on StockX, or you're going to an American site and having to ship it to an American cousin, and then they would bring it over to not pay duties. It was like jumping through hoops just to get a pair of sneakers. So Shelby and I, who's my co-founder, who's also the director of player advancement at the Toronto Raptors, she and I actually met working at the Raptors. So basketball is a very, very real love story for me in many different ways. But she's my business partner, and we would always want to wear sneakers all the time because it's how we dressed up and it's how we showed our personalities. And it was so difficult to get a pair of sneakers because we were Canadian. So we basically went to Nike, Jordan, all of our current accounts and said, there is a huge market for your business, yet you have nowhere to put your product. So we're opening a store, you need to give us your product. And normally when you open a brand new sneaker store, it takes about 2 or 3 years to get a Jordan account or a Nike or Jordan account because you have to prove that, you know, like you could be a business without them. But within the first year, they like bought in and they gave us accounts, and we're the only female like high heat. So like all the really big drops, we get them, and all the men are really mad at us. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Keep them mad. Does anyone else have a question?
My name is Ray. I had a question, and I think a lot of athletes would probably appreciate, because you guys talk a lot about two things. One, it's still having love for the game, and two, there's a mindset aspect when it comes to also challenging barriers and stereotypes. But with that, you know, you have two competing factors. So there's an aspect of balance that you need to achieve with that, so that you're not losing your love for the game, but you're also challenging yourself and, you know, proving naysayers wrong and pushing yourself to reach your potential. So what's your advice for athletes, whether that's in sport, outside of sports, of how they can navigate reaching that balance in their lives?
Hey, Ray. We got a call soon. But what I would say is just remembering your why. And honestly, when things get tough with Hoop Queens, and not every day it's a positive day for me, but I always think about that next generation of kids that I have to create opportunities for that can't go D1 or can't go overseas. So just thinking about the next generation of youth really fuels the balance for me.
Does anyone else want to answer that?
I will agree on the next generation. In the position that I am now, in the position that I have now at Raptors 905, one of the things that I implemented this year, last year, COVID year was a little tricky, but this year was to make sure that I partner with an organization of BIPOC youth and have them shadow myself. Kind of like a day in the life of. So have them shadow myself for a few hours. And so this year we partnered with this organization called Black Esteem. And they're in the East End. Actually, no, they're kind of all over. But it was such a great experience. I think we had 8 young women, high school age. And I look at them and I see myself. And I never had any of these opportunities. And so to be in a position where I can now provide these opportunities to youth who may not have those opportunities is probably the best part of my job. Impacting our community in positive ways is the best part, and probably the reason that continues to fuel me right now in the job that I'm doing.
I think for me, maintaining balance is a really interesting concept. Not sure I've gotten there, but anytime I feel like I'm about to just lose it because I have a full-time job doing MakeWay, it is always important to, especially obviously Keesa and Tammy just said this, like remembering your why is really important. And, you know, Shelby and I always say we may be the first female-owned sneaker boutique, but we don't want to be the last. And we want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities going forward in the spaces that we live, because you know, I think about what I was when I was 10 years old, and I wanted to be in sports marketing. And when I did maybe I wasn't 10, I mean, it was probably older because I was doing research. The internet also didn't exist when I was that age, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But I did research into it, and the people who worked in sports marketing were all white males. And I was like, well, that's not gonna be me, so never mind. But so I continue to do this, and I continue to do these panels, and because I want women to, or young girls to see that like, it's not just white males who are taking up spaces, and I might be few of many, but that's okay because that few is gonna eventually become more and more and more, and that's the balance for me. It's like you work really hard and you work till 4 a.m. and you gotta get up at 8 a.m. Similar to like what it felt like to be an athlete, you know, you wake up super early to train. That's why athletes are so good in business, because they understand grit and they understand grind and they understand how hard it is to win. And I think when I think about balance, it's the craziness of being super busy and working really, really hard in the thing I love, but then remembering that I love it so much that like it doesn't feel like work.
I want to add to that as well, and like because I also work a full-time job and run Hoop Queens. It's honestly, I'm starting to figure out there's never going to be a perfect balance. Also, I feel like everybody on Instagram and Twitter and socials, they always want to promote this perfect balance of waking up and, getting stuff done before 9 and doing things like a routine, but your routine is going to look different every day. And that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself if, 1 week, you don't wake up at 5 a.m. It's fine. It's totally fine. No one's going to beat you. That's what you always have to remember when you're also, trying to start your own thing or even balance, work and, your side hustle. It's never going to be perfect. It's just like healing. It's never going to be perfect. It's like the journey of life. That's what the journey of life is. And I don't think anybody on Instagram ever says this, but it's never going to stop. The finding of your balance it's going to be a life lesson. That's it.
Is there another question?
Yeah, we're here. Me personally, I would be shocked if there isn't an expansion bid for the WNBA here in Toronto, especially with the overwhelming response for the preseason game. But what I was wondering is if there's a missed opportunity with Vancouver, in the sense that not so much that the game shouldn't be here, but let's say that there is a preseason game for next season that organizers should consider Vancouver because the Grizzlies came and went and they didn't have an opportunity to really establish themselves in the market. And more than anything, I don't really know how close Vancouver is to Vegas, but obviously it's spitting distance to Seattle. And I just think that there's such an opportunity to develop that rivalry between the Storm and said team in Vancouver. Your comments?
No, I like that actually. And I know NBA Canada over the last few years have done the Raptors exhibition games in Vancouver, in Edmonton this past year, and you saw those sell out quickly in Montreal. And I think the way that the women's game sold out here in Toronto in a split second, I think the same thing would happen in Vancouver. The fan base in Vancouver is very strong as well. And so to your point, Seattle sees a lot of Canadians across the border and go to the game. So I definitely think that would be a market. Go ahead.
I don't know. With regards to one franchise in Canada, do you think that it would thrive more if an expansion bid included Vancouver as well, to not only develop a rivalry between Vancouver and Seattle, but of course with Vancouver and Toronto?
So you're saying Vancouver instead of Toronto?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I was like, instead? Both? Okay. That's a great question. I definitely do see the rivalry and it being right there. I think this year will be interesting for Seattle because Sue Bird is now gone. Brianna Stewart's now gone, and so it'll be interesting to see how they keep their fan base. I know that their league came out, and I believe the value of their team went up 15, 20%.
It was $150 million.
Yeah, the value of their team went up ridiculously. I don't know if they're the top value team in the W, but it will be a good year for them to see what that fan base looks like in those numbers. But I definitely like Vancouver. I know that we've played in Vancouver, we've trained in Vancouver, and the games have sold out, or the practices that we've had have definitely sold out. Like I said, I played a few years ago. You played more recently than me, but Vancouver's a great city, and they definitely support their women.
Do you want to add to that, Abbey?
I have a question to your question. Are you from Vancouver? Oh, thought you were like the ops. Are you from Vancouver tourism?
And can I just add something to that too? One thing, and I love that you're asking questions, is I know that we've talked about women in the space and more opportunities for women. There are a lot of men who support the growth of women's sports. And so don't forget that. I know personally, like my boss, Courtney Charles at Raptors 905, has allowed me to go out and now do what I want to do. So in the women's space, in the girls' space. So there's a lot of men. So thank you for those who definitely support and who are here. I don't know if you still have a question, but no worries. But yes. So don't lose sight of that. There are a lot of men who are allies who will support. and we need to have them join us so we can get to where we want to go.
That actually brings up my next point, which is perfect, and it's about Vancouver. So Canada basketball plays in, it's Victoria, but in Victoria often, and our women's team goes there often, and actually we're headed there this summer. There's a gentleman out there, he is a huge donor into Canada basketball's world, and he is feverishly hoping to bring a Vancouver team, a WNBA team. So there's definitely a lot of interest. I think it just comes down to dollars, and it comes down to the infrastructure of the city. Where will they play? You know, like, are they splitting seasons within, like, I don't really know a lot about their arenas out there. And so I just think there's a lot of interest to do it, and I would be so excited because I grew up in the era of Grizzlies and Raps. You were literally just born. So, but I grew up in that era. So I believe that like cross-country rivalry would be such a dope opportunity. And I know a ton of Vancouver people who travel all the time to watch Seattle games. So I think you're like totally on point, and I would love to see that.
I love the conversation because it goes wider than sort of what will it mean for girls and women. There's economic benefits of people, as you said, traveling to Vancouver and Toronto. So it's definitely a win-win in terms of the business model and what it could do for our country.
I do want to add that Montreal is a very, very big basketball city. I'm sure the CEVL, I think, they were the worst team in the CEVL, but they actually had the highest tickets sales across the CEVL. So Montreal also has a really big market for
Can you
basketball.
just explain what the CEBL is? I know what it is, but just for anybody.
The CEVL is the Canadian Elite Basketball League. The founder is Mike Morelli. And it's it's basically, they have a men's game for university athletes that, don't go to the NBA that play here. They also have correct me if I'm wrong, a 2 international rule, like 2 spots for the American players. I
think it's more now. They started off with 2, but I think it's more.
Yeah, so it's like 4 American players can actually play on the CEVL team, but the whole team is Canadian. So CEVL is doing a great job of growing the game for the men's side, and hopefully there's a WCVL soon too.
Is there another question?
Yes. Hey, my name is Ritu, and thanks so much. This panel.
I love your jersey.
Thank you. She's one of my favorite players. I love Candace Parker. Awesome. So, my question is, when you each of you in your particular roles, when you approach sponsors or companies that you're trying to convince to invest in, let's say for Hoop Queens, it's a league for Canada basketball, what are the things that you take with you as, let's say, like a business case study, right? Like some things that you can tell that, hey, we want you to invest in these programs. Because we've seen that, again, it's a whole thing where people say that people don't want to watch women's sports because there's no money, and because of that, the reason is media. Like, if you don't put it on TV, people are not going to see it. So again, it's a whole vicious cycle. So in each of your roles, I would love to know some examples as to how you sort of tackle that and not use like a cookie cutter approach for sponsorships.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Great question. So for me, one big thing, because I literally just got into it, it's like probably 2 years now of figuring, how to get sponsors, is relationship building and just being a good human being. Honestly, a lot of sponsors, like we talked about, Flair Airlines, like it's literally just like, okay, if you're a great person and you have a great business model behind it, yeah, we'll back you. Another, obviously, a big thing when you're coming into conversations is having a pitch deck ready. So that's like talking, just like 10 slides, doesn't have to be a whole like big presentation. It's just kind of like more so, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And honestly, half the time they don't read it. It's really just, it's actually just you presenting it and you really kind of convincing them that this is your passion and why you should back it. So it's really about you and not so much what the idea is and how passionate you are about your project.
And I think each case is different. At Raptors 905, we have a little less red tape than, say, the Toronto Raptors. And so for me, it's presenting a case where you have more access to our athletes, right, at the end of the day. And so I see that in the women's space too. I know for women athletes and WNBA players now, there is more access. They do love to do more stuff in the community. And so I think that's a big piece when it comes to a brand wanting to work with, whether it's a company or an organization. Having that access, I think for 905 is one of the biggest things for us.
It's a partnership, so you really have to go and find out what they want. So that's a big piece too. Sometimes people go in and they're like, this is what we do and this is why we're so great, but you're actually forgetting to ask them, like, what is it that your priorities are this year? If your priority is, like selling a specific product, like say it's a watch company and they're like, we really want to sell this specific model of watch and that's our key priority for the year, find out how you can actually help them sell that watch and then become invaluable. So it's become so important to their business model that they can't see a world without you. It's similar to like when you're interviewing for a job, that main question of like, how can I help you best? When you're being the interviewee, allows you to understand a little bit more about their business and how your brand can actually help them. So regardless if it's sports or if it's cosmetics or whichever, understanding what their priorities are is always, I think, like step one for me. And then just showcasing why you are different or your brand is different than any other brand and that you can provide them something that no one else can.
I would also add your values, like what does the values of your company stand for and your mission statement? Does that align with the other partner or the potential partner that you're trying to engage with? I think when values are aligned and missions are aligned, that makes things a lot easier to kind of grow a partnership. But everything else everybody else said here is also very true.
Yes, I wanted to add to that too, because alignment is a big thing. Honestly, Abbey and Shelby really taught me that because they are female funded, it has to align with what you're doing and like your mission, like, Anka said, like you have to really make sure you know what your values are, make sure you know what your mission is so that you don't, when you go into a room, you know exactly like what you want. And when someone says something or throws something at you, you're like, that doesn't align with me, or that's not the energy that I want to bring into my organization. So really understanding, your objectives of like where you want to take your organization as well is a big thing.
Thank you. Question over here.
Hi, I'm Bianca. My question is, to all young female athletes, what would you say?
Advice that they would give female athletes?
Like, what advice would you give a female athlete, no matter what sport?
What I would say is you're more than an athlete, because a lot of times you think obviously you're 4 years, and let's say you're in university, you're 4 years, you're so focused on playing that one sport, and then you think you're going to go overseas, but also it's like getting to know yourself is a really big thing, because someday that basketball is going to stop dribbling, so you got to figure out who you are as a person. And getting to be really self-aware of, yes, I'm an athlete, I play basketball or I play that sport, but I'm also this. I also like this, is a really big thing.
Tammy?
And then I would just add, have fun. You have to have fun in whatever it is that you do. I think when we talk about, young kids playing the sport, and I think a lot of times we talk about, oh, do you want to be a professional basketball player? Honestly, if you love sports, there's so many different niches within sports that you can do and still be around the game. So there's PR, there's broadcasting, there's photography, there's front office. Like there's so many areas that you could be great at. You don't have to be an athlete and still be around the game that you love. And so that's my biggest thing, is to have fun and love what you do. Otherwise, life gets pretty miserable if you don't. So enjoy the ride.
We have time for one last question, or did you want to add advice? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just to add to what Keesa and Tammy said, I was bad at basketball. Let's be very clear. Like I was not good. It wasn't my knees that made me stop playing. I just was terrible. So like, don't think that if you're not good at the sport that you can't do that for the rest of your life. I've literally worked in basketball for my entire life, and I've made quite a good career out of it, and I made a business out of it, and I've made friendships out of it. So sport doesn't just give you the ability to dribble a ball. This sport actually gives you the ability to live a really fulfilling life. And if you're passionate about this specific sport, don't let performance or if you made the team or if you won the championship be the thing that ends your love for it, because sport is a long commitment, and you can have a great life even if you don't play.
Just to add to what everyone said, essentially we are all saying, believe in yourself. There's more avenues for women, not women's basketball players, but female athletes. You're more than an athlete. There's different things you can do. Like sports will take you very far. Basketball can take you far, even if you're not playing the sport. And for me, I'll just add, find your voice. For you to know where you want to go, you got to be able to find your voice so that you can speak those things into existence, but also ask for the things that you want and need.
Okay, I think there was one more last one. We'll sneak that one in.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. This is a bit of a controversial topic, and I'm sorry. But I don't know much about sports. I don't play sports, but I wanted to ask you guys what your opinion was about trans women in sports. I know there's been some examples like in rugby and as well as boxing where it's become very dangerous for cisgendered women. And I just wanted to ask you guys how you felt about that and like how you feel about them taking spaces possibly away from cisgendered women, or if you like don't see it that way. I just wanted to know. Thank you so much.
It's a great question. Who wants to take that one?
I have not had a lot of experience in this world, so preface my answer with this. However, just based on what's happening in the States, specifically with some of the laws coming into place, it is a huge mistake to not let someone play sport. So it is really frustrating to watch this happen. To say that a trans woman can't play a sport because she doesn't fit into some binary world is really, really sad. And it makes me feel for that one person, because that shouldn't identify where you play, when you play, who you play with. If they want to play the sport, they should play the sport. But again, I've not had personal experience with this, so I do feel like I might not be the best person, but that's kind of where I am right now. And I understand there's a lot of security issues and safety issues, so that's where I think there needs to be a little bit more education and it is such a new topic that I believe it's probably going to change a lot over the next few years.
I was going to add to the power of social media. You see a lot of athletes standing behind 2S LGBTQ+ rights and sharing their voices. I think there's a lot of people who use their platforms to speak about what's right. Like Abbey said, everybody should have an opportunity to play. It doesn't matter who you are. And also everybody should be in a safe environment and feel safe to play sports. So I would definitely say we're encouraged to see athletes using their voices. I know the WNBA, are always advocating for women, for BIPOC women, for 2S LGBTQ+ women. So I think just seeing athletes using their platforms and speaking about these topics and advocating is very encouraging. Okay, I think we're finished here with the questions. You guys had amazing questions. You could have came up here, we could have switched seats. So thanks for all of your questions and perspectives. Thanks to this wonderful panel. Also thanks to the Varsity and the staff at U of T who allowed us to host our event here. Thanks to our volunteers, Keesa, Deja, and Grace. Thanks to Andy, who's pretty much been my rock through developing She's4Sports. That's my husband over there. And my friends, I see my mom's here, and my two best friends, Jen and Shauna, my longtime friend, Emily, I don't know if she's still here, and Lisa, and everybody else who's been following She's4Sports for a while now. Thanks for giving us some of your time, and enjoy the food, and maybe talk to some of the panelists. Thank you all for joining us for the She's4Sports Growing the Game event. I hope you had a great evening, and again, enjoy the rest of the evening, okay?